So students, you are aware of the CSV file. CSV file means the comma separated value file, and it is a delimited text file that uses comma to separate the values. Each line of the file is actually a record, and record consists of one or more fields that are separated by commas. So in CSV file, the use of comma as a field separator is the source of the file name for this file format. A CSV file stores the tabular data, that is the data in the form of rows and columns. The data can consist of numbers and text in the plain text format. So in this case, each line will have same number of fields. The purpose of separating the fields with the help of comma is clear, that the data can be read with the help of statements in Python. When we are reading data from CSV file, it involves loading of the CSV file's data in the memory, parsing it, and then loading it in a Python iterable. And then once it is stored in the form of iterables in Python, these iterables can be accessed or read with the help of loop. You have studied iterables in previous chapters. The Python sequence can be iterated over with the help of for loop. Like in a list, you can write for I in L, where L is a list and I will pick up one element at a time with the execution of the loop. So that is why list is an iterable in Python. Similarly, other iterables are tuples, strings. So once the data that is read from the CSV file is stored in the memory in the form of the Python iterable, the data can be manipulated with the help of the Python statements. So when we want to read or we want to write a program to read the CSV file, the first thing is to import the CSV, and the statement is import CSV. Now the function used to read the CSV file is the CSV.reader. So this function, reader function, is used to read the data from the CSV file, and the CSV. Now when this function executes, it returns a reader object which loads the data from the CSV file into iterable after parsing the delimited data. Delimited data means data separated by the delimiter character, which is comma in case of the CSV files. The CSV.reader that you use is the object which is used to read the CSV file, and CSV writer is the object while writing into the CSV file. So the purpose of the CSV reader object is to load the data from the CSV file, parsing the data, that is checking each character of the data file, and it removes the delimiter and returns the data in the form of Python iterable, from where using a loop we can fetch one row of the data at a time and manipulate it according to our requirement. So this is a diagrammatic representation of reading a CSV file. So the CSV file is basically stored on any storage disk, which is normally a hard disk on your computer system. So through the statements, the CSV file is read and the record is transferred to RAM in the form of the iterable through the CSV reader object. It is the CSV reader object that parses the delimited CSV file data and loads it into the Python iterable. Once it is converted to Python iterable, you can use a loop to access the records one by one. So you can fetch one row at a time from the reader object using for loop. So this is how you can separate the different rows of the data. Now, what are the steps that you have to include in your program if you want to read the CSV file? The very first thing is to import the CSV module. And the statement is CSV import CSV. So CSV module is to be imported. Next step is to open the CSV file in a file handle in read mode, because you are going to read the file. You want to access the data that is stored in the CSV file. So for that you need a file handle, which can be any valid identifier. You know how to select a valid identifier. So using all those rules, you will select any file handle is equal to open. Open is the function that is used to open the CSV file. Then within the double quotes, you have to write the name of the CSV file. So this is the syntax and you have to follow it as it is. Within double quotes, you will mention the name of the CSV file and this comma, and then after that you have to write the modes, the read modes. This is an example statement. fh, you can select any file handle name here. I have used fh is equal to open. This you have to write as it is because it is a function, a predefined function, so it is to be used as it is. Now the file name within double quotes. If this file is stored in a particular folder or subfolder, in that case you have to mention complete path here, and this is the read mode. For reading, you write R within double quotes. So while opening a file for reading, the file must exist. That is, it is already created. Otherwise, an exception will be raised. So this statement will work only for the file that has already been created, either directly writing or creating the file with the help of Notepad or in MS Excel or through a Python program. In earlier topics, you have studied how to write a CSV file or create a CSV file using Python program. But directly also the CSV file can be created in Notepad or in MS Excel. So if the file is not created, then it will throw an exception, and then to handle the exception, you have to include try except, or you can use with statement to handle the exceptions properly. That is, to avoid the program ending abruptly. Next step is to create the reader object by using the syntax, the name of the reader object. So this is the syntax. You can select again, this is any identifier you can write here. So this is the name of the reader object is equal to csv.reader. If you have not imported your CSV file with any other name and you have used only import CSV statement to import the CSV file, you'll use your CSV. And if you use any alias name for the module in the import statement, then you can use that alias name here. So if you have written only import CSV, then you have to write csv.reader. So reader is the function of the module CSV. Then this is file handle that you used just in that statement in the previous slide. In an example where I used fh as file handle, the same file handle will be used here, comma, the delimiter. This is an attribute of the reader function. So this delimiter you'll use as it is, and whatever character you want to set as the delimiter character that has been used in the CSV file, that character you will write here. These are certain examples, like STU reader is the name of the reader object I have used. This is your choice. You can use any valid identifier here. This is to be used as it is because it is a predefined function. In Python, it is to be used as it is. CSV is the module that was imported on the top. So CSV.reader and fh is the file handle. Or you can also write in another format, STU reader is equal to CSV.reader fh, comma, delimiter is equal to a pipe sign. So delimiter attribute is optional here. By default, comma is the delimiter in the CSV file, but if your file contains any other delimiter character, then you have to use this delimiter attribute. So delimiter is equal to pipe sign, or if the delimiter is a hash symbol, then your statement will change to the name of the reader object is equal to CSV.reader fh, the file handle, comma, delimiter is equal to hash. So whatever character you have used as a delimiter in the CSV file, that character you will write with the delimiter attribute. The next step is the reader object. It stores the parse data in the form of the Python iterables. So from here we can fetch the data row by row, because generally we are required to manipulate the data with the help of the Python statements, and in that case we need to access the data row by row. So the Python iterable data can be accessed row by row with the help of for loop. And you are familiar with the for loop. It accesses one row at a time. So for REC, any variable name can be used here. In is an operator. STU reader. And then if you simply want to print, you can write print or other Python statements that are required according to the question. This is just an example. These statements will depend on the question or the aim of the program. But the pattern of accessing the records row by row will remain same. That is, you have to use a for loop for any variable name in STU reader. And then if you want to print or do any kind of manipulation, those statements will be included within the for loop. Next step is to process the fetched data. Once you have got the data in the form of a variable, you can process it according to your requirement. Now when the required task is done, that is when you have manipulated the data according to the aim of the program, after that the next task is to close the file using the syntax filehandle.close. So close is also a function defined in CSV module, and it is used to close the CSV file. And for that the file handle is required that you used with the open statement. So the same file handle you will use here to close the file. So it was fh there. So example, fh.close will close the CSV file.